Hey man, it's me, Kevin Smith, Silent Bob from all those Jay and Silent Bob type pictures, man. And I'm breaking the silence to tell you that you're listening to the Buff and the Blazer podcast with Drew and Toddo. Enjoy the show, kids.
Hey, Toddo.
What's going on?
We got a podcast, The Buff and the Blazer. If I was a listener, where would I go to find more?
You can check us out on our website, thebuffandtheblazer.com. Drew over there writes a article that goes along with every single episode.
You can find all kinds of little extras on the articles, and you can listen to the podcast right there. Also, you can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And, of course, we're on Twitter at Buff and Blazer. Follow us there.
Get those clicks, people.
The Buff and the Blazer.
Welcome to episode 66 of the Buff and the Blazer podcast, the show where we break down and discuss old movies, new movies, everything in between. I'm Drew, and as always, I'm here with my good pal, Mr. El Toddo.
What's up, dude?
What is up, man?
Nothing much. Springtime.
Springtime. Allergies got me down. Holy crap, I got a massive headache right now.
Yeah, I've been pretty good lately. I kind of got through the initial wave of it.
Yeah, but it's all good. These Skull Crusher headphones make it all better.
There you go.
Just crush the headache away. All right, well, another week, another movie, and we're continuing again with this little Oscar preview thing we have going on. I think we have two more to complete the Oscar list. I don't know if we want to finish that, but anyways.
I'm voting no.
No.
I'm voting no. I've had enough of these downer-ass movies.
All right, so the film we're discussing this week is The Father, directed by Florian Zeller and starring Anthony Hopkins. And this film, I think, Anthony Hopkins is definitely nominated for Best Actor, and I can't remember this one of the Best Picture nominees. I think it is, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, it's available, I think, in theaters and to stream or to rent anyway, digitally.
Yeah,
So
I paid $20 to rent it.
Yeah, me too. So I had the old iTunes going, and we watched it over the last couple days. And let's dive into this one. This one was another kind of typical Oscar film, at least this year anyway. So what did you think after coming away from The Father?
So I kind of have two different takes on this movie. One is like the kind of exhausted, yeah, I get it, bummer take. Like,
Yeah.
Yes, it's a very good movie, but it's a total bummer to watch. And I bet for some people, it's way more of a bummer than it is to me. Obviously, the movie is about an elderly man kind of losing his shit with dementia, right? It's like a dementia, Alzheimer's type of theme.
Yeah.
So I bet it's really, really a bummer for people that have gone through that.
Yeah.
And for someone like me who hasn't, it was still a super bummer. But the other angle that I really enjoyed about this movie was like how fucking trippy it was.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because there's a perspective way that this movie is shot where you almost feel like you're going crazy watching it. And I thought that was super cool.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the technical aspect, like the cinematography and the trippiness of the movie, and like the dialogue and like the way they captured like the recurring memory shit where like the same dialogue would happen in different parts of the movie, right?
Right.
And how like the whole movie you're basically as confused as he is.
Yeah.
Right? And I really appreciated that side of it and enjoyed that side of it. And obviously the acting was like insanely good.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my two kind of overalls. It was pretty entertaining from just like a trippy standpoint movie.
Yeah.
I tend to like those types of really confusing movies. But this one's a super bummer, man. And it totally got me, you know, like totally had me all emotional at the end of the movie. So I'll give them that on the bummer side.
Yeah.
But what about you?
So we talked a little bit about it before we hit the record button, and this thing got me emotionally too. So we've done a handful of these Oscar films, and this one hits you pretty hard, right on the heartstrings. It totally tugs at you, and I think the strength of this movie is the way that they're able to get you into the head of this character and what they're going through by use of like really smart film editing and direction to make the story broken up in a way where it almost feels like a dream. Like to me, where you have a dream at night and you hear words or people and they're saying things, but not in the context that you may have heard it when you were awake at some point. You kind of get that same vibe with this. And it's like a total window into the mind of someone that's dealing with Alzheimer's and dementia. But what's cool is while you're completely confused through most of the film, it kind of ties up really nice at the end and you understand what's going on. At the same time, though, you still have a few questions where you're like, what's a memory? What actually happened? They don't really answer that for you, but you get a better idea of why you're seeing the things you're seeing throughout the film. And you get little hints and pieces of this man's past life before he had any kind of mental disease or brain disease. So I really like that. And I thought out of all the films that we've seen in terms of like the Oscar films, this one was one of the more interesting ones. Just from the way it was shot.
Yeah.
And what keeps you in it is, I think, Anthony Hopkins himself, like his performance, because he's really captivating. Like I love his range. He's charming at times, and you just can't take your eyes off of him. It's like you really want to see what he's going to do next. And I loved how his character is unpredictable in that way. And I thought in terms of range, from the performances we've seen up to this point from the Oscar contenders, at least on the, leading man category, this was amazing. And it's not that surprising because it's Anthony Hopkins. I mean, anyone who's watched movies in the past 30 years knows about his work, like his filmography, and the dude's he's killing it even right now. Like, I'm surprised he's not retired and he's still kicking
When
ass.
we get into character, I want to dive into him a bit because his performance in this movie is pretty insane.
Yeah. Yeah, we will.
And I want to kind of go through his catalog and try and find where he hit certain things that he hit in this movie.
Oh,
if he's
okay.
done it before. Because I almost feel like there's some stuff he did in this movie that I've never seen of him before.
Yeah. So I think it's, for me anyway, the film was really captivating. It was a bit of a bummer at times, but it doesn't, when you leave it, it does give you a little glimmer of kind of hope at the end. At least feeling a bit better about humanity in some sense, I guess.
I don't
it's
know,
not all,
man.
yeah.
I don't know if I agree with you there.
We could talk about that scene maybe. But anyway, I quite like this film.
Yeah, I went into it with a pretty bad attitude. Just because I knew it was going to be pretty depressing.
Yeah.
But it totally, I was like, damn, it's another one where it's like, fuck yeah, it was a total bummer, but it is really goddamn good.
Yeah. The crazy thing too is like it takes place all indoors almost. Like in an apartment or a flat.
And I think we're going to have to dig a little deeper.
Yeah.
And it's not really a spoilery type of movie,
I don't think so.
right?
I don't think so. I mean, I guess you can call what happens at the end a bit of a twist, but you should almost expect that based off of what this film is about.
Yeah, I'm a bit torn on we've been doing so many no spoiler movies lately.
Yeah.
I kind of want to ask a lot of questions about what your interpretation of the storyline is.
Okay. All right.
So can we just dig? So fair warning.
Let's just give spoiler warning then.
I
dive
guess
into
it's
this one.
spoilers, but it's not that type of movie.
Yeah. This one's worth diving into, like you said.
Okay.
All right, cool. Well, let's get into it then. Where do you want to start in terms of like what kind of questions you have?
All right. This is
Not that I'm like the encyclopedia or anything. I'm just like, let's get the conversation going.
Okay, so the way I interpreted the whole movie
Uh-huh.
as like a series of recurring memories in his head
Yeah.
that blend together.
Mm-hmm.
And where my question lies is, what type of time frame do you think the movie took place over? Do you think the movie took place over a time frame of what is kind of presented, maybe a series of months if you try and follow the storyline, or do you think the storyline is spaced out over like a previous decade of time or more?
I think it's that.
Okay.
I think it's a collection of memories he has from way back to recent memories where they could have happened, months ago or a month ago, maybe even weeks ago. But I think where he is at the end of the film, I think that is his present circumstance. And then the whole rest of the film are just fragments of memories of things he's recalling while he's there and mixing up kind of the images he's getting in the home with his personal life and having those kind of like mix up.
Yeah.
That was my take.
Yeah, mine too. So basically like the final kind of element of the movie, the last sequence, I guess,
Yeah.
is the only point at which you're really in the present.
Right.
The entire movie, right?
Yeah.
I thought that was super cool.
So let me ask you this, because this was a question that I had. So, like I mentioned, the film takes place in this flat for most of it anyway.
Is it one or is it two? Because I feel like there was two.
Oh, maybe.
There's his flat and then there's his daughter's. And
Well,
they're
see-
very similar.
Oh, okay. So to me, they were the same place. The only thing was that I just thought he couldn't figure out whether it was his or hers.
Yeah, because I think in the beginning part of the movie, that was his flat.
Okay.
And then at some point there was a move
Yeah.
because he had like his pimp office,
Yeah.
like with all of his books and shit
Right.
in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And that room wasn't there for the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
And his bedroom like slowly shifted
Mm-hmm.
to the hospital bedroom,
Yeah. Yeah.
which I thought was super cool.
Okay, let me ask you this. Do you think the flat was actually a thing for him, like something he actually owned and lived in? Or do you think it was all kind of like his current predicament wanting to live in a flat? Do you think the flat actually existed at some
Yeah.
point? Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
I do think his flat existed at some point, and he got moved in with his daughter at some
Yeah.
point.
Okay,
And the
gotcha.
transition in there is totally lost,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
From a memory standpoint.
gotcha. Okay. Let me ask you, so when Olivia Williams comes in, right? So we're first introduced to Olivia Coleman as Anne, who plays his daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And then Olivia Williams kind of just comes out of nowhere, and she's immediately thrown onto the screen. I'm sure you thought that he was remembering like the younger version of his daughter.
At that point,
At
yeah.
that point, is that what you thought too?
Yeah. But that
Okay.
happens very early on. So
Right.
you have to take that into account with
Yeah.
where the movie ends.
Right. So that was one of those like twisty, clever little moves that the director does where he like it totally makes sense, right? I love that about this story where like you're seeing the images and he's like, "Where's Anne?" And then she's like, "I am Anne."
Yeah.
And you're buying into that because you know this man has dementia and he has Alzheimer's or whatever, and so you assume that he's just mixing it up, that he's forgotten who she is. But the fact that that's not exactly the case, I
Yeah.
loved that, and that kind of threw me for a loop once the ending came.
And it immediately has you thinking, well, who the hell was the first person?
Right,
Is that not his daughter, or is it?
right,
And then it kind of, there's so much confusion with such a small cast
yeah.
that it's super cool.
So this was the other question I had for you. So with Olivia Coleman's character as Anne, his daughter, did you think that, so she has two husbands in this film. So one is like, I guess, a Frenchman, and the other one is supposedly, didn't they say she was married at some point and then got divorced?
Well, yeah, Paul, what's his name? Rufus Sewell.
Yeah.
He, I think, is her husband
Okay.
for a period of time.
Right.
And Anthony Hopkins' character moving in with Anne and Paul causes the divorce
Oh,
between
okay.
them, which goes on for 5 years,
Yeah.
and then she gets her Frenchman, who you never meet.
So you never meet the Frenchman.
No,
So who does Mark Gaddis play then?
he's the other nurse at the nursing home.
That's right. Oh, okay. See, I'm already confused now.
See, yeah,
Yeah. That's right. Okay, so that makes total sense. So you're right. We only do meet one of her significant others.
So that's what I'm getting at. Like the story takes place over like a decade,
Yeah. Okay.
right?
Right. And so his predicament at the end of the film, he's there because she ends up going to France, right?
Yeah, and for all we know, no. So basically, we find out that he's been in there for a few months.
Right.
So maybe the movie takes place over that few months that he's been in the home,
Right.
and it's all memory.
Gotcha.
It's
Well, and here's
a
the other
trip,
thing.
man.
Yeah, it is trippy.
It's super trippy.
And the other thing too is like what's really interesting is some of his memories seem like they're a bit unclear because the characters, once we get to the end, we realize that some of the characters have been mismatched.
Yeah.
But there are some memories that seem extremely clear. And I'm thinking of the scene where he's sitting down in the doctor's office with Olivia Coleman, and they're almost like having the discussion about whether or not he needs to be in the home. And like, that's another, I think, win for how this film was put together is I just don't know how you're able to follow all of these lines and have them come together at the end so well because there's so much going on.
That's kind of what I was getting at with like the recurring dialogue portions of the movie. Like that, what he is remembering when that happened, whether it's him walking into the room when Paul and Anne are talking about putting him in a home,
Yeah.
right? Which happens back to back, like in a very circular roundabout way. Did you notice
Yes.
that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So like those little moments that he has are real in his memory,
Yeah.
but that's all he remembers, right? So there's like little snippets that are real, and everything that happens in between there
Mm-hmm.
just eventually leads back to the same place
Yeah.
because there's only so many memories in the bank at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a trip, man. It's kind of terrifying.
Yeah, and so for me, that's what got me emotional is because you're watching it, and if you can just put yourself into the shoes of this character at some point, that is scary as fuck. Like, if you were to wake up like that and realize that you have no idea of what's real and what's not, like, I can't think of anything scarier than that.
Yeah.
And I think the film does, that's where the strength of this film is being able to put you, it's almost like POV almost in a weird way. Like you can, the way that they present what's going on screen, you're seeing everything from the viewpoint of Anthony.
Yeah.
And that's what's so scary and effective about it.
And you're as freaked out and confused by the end of the movie as he is.
Yeah,
You know?
totally. Man. And then once
I think from, just a straight story standpoint, it's total masterpiece.
Yeah, totally.
Masterpiece of confusion and time
Mm-hmm.
warp action, kind of.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's really good. I didn't expect the story to be that kind of knotted.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I expected it to just be a really bummer movie where you're kind of getting Anne's perspective the whole time, like how difficult it is for the daughter.
Right.
And it totally caught me off guard that you actually like are being presented the craziness.
Yeah.
Which had me, I didn't expect that. I'll just say that,
Yeah. I like how at first, before you realize what's going on, you really don't know whose perspective the story's being told from.
Yeah.
Until you start getting confused, then you're like, okay, this story is being told from Anthony's perspective. And yeah, I think scary and terrifying are really good words to use when when you're watching this film. And then by the end, you're wrecked. You're like totally wrecked.
Yeah.
And, God, like I was getting all teary-eyed watching.
Oh, dude,
scenes.
all choked up. That
Yeah.
that final scene Anthony Hopkins does, it's
Right.
just like, holy shit.
Gosh. Yeah, there's oh man. Yeah, I've seen a lot of his films, and I still think this is probably one of his best in terms
And that's
of
kind
performance.
of, that's what I want to get at when we get into character.
All right, well, did we have anything else to say about...
I think, yeah, we didn't really like describe the story. We just kind of tried to talk it out,
Yeah.
which I think is all right. So that might have been super duper spoily, but whatever. We warned you.
Yeah. No, I think this one's worth talking about because it was so well done. But yeah, okay, let me ask you real quick about the ending. So once we got there, what were you thinking at that point? Like once you figure out where you are by the end?
I thought the whole time, I was like, oh, this is where the movie started.
Yeah. Okay. Same for me.
You know, that's where I came back to.
And did it catch you off guard at all, or were you somewhat expecting it?
The one part that really caught me off guard was the way Laura is woven into the story.
Yeah.
Because I don't know okay, I'll put it this way. So Catherine
Mm-hmm.
and the man, Bill,
Right.
they're obviously the nurses at the home, right?
Okay.
So where I'm confused is who is the real Laura? Was Catherine Laura? Did she come by the house to take care of him? Or is the person who was really Laura, we never even see their face because he imagines her as his daughter?
His younger daughter, right?
Yeah, Lucy.
Yeah. So I was the way I interpreted it was that Imogen Poots actually played his younger daughter
Yeah, me too.
in the role of caretaker.
Yeah. So my question is, was Catherine working at the home? Because it doesn't make sense, right? Because somebody that works at the hospital wouldn't be doing house calls to take care of people.
Right.
So my thing is, we probably never even saw Laura's real face,
Right.
which is a trip.
I just assumed that, that was his daughter's physical appearance
Yeah.
in the role of the caretaker, who we never get to see. And Olivia Williams is just his nurse at the home.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's it sounds nuts when we say that. And that's like just really interesting storytelling. It's really complex. I don't know. I would be driving myself nuts trying to keep this storyline together, like while shooting. I want to know how you come up with a shooting schedule to do this. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
And it's worth mentioning, too, that this film is based off of a play that Florian Zeller wrote and put on. So this
that's
is
probably, you know what? That's probably pretty cool as a play,
yeah,
right?
I could totally see that.
You could do that with characters. That is cool.
Mm-hmm.
I can totally see how it's a play now.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yep. So, yeah, and then I can't remember.
And that makes sense why the set design is so similar.
Oh, yeah.
It
Yeah,
makes
yeah.
sense of it being a play, too, because I can see how it could be pulled off with a few different sets on a stage.
Yep.
That's pretty interesting. Kudos.
Yeah, totally. And, I mean, I would think to translate that onto screen and make it captivating, that's hard. And they somehow are able to do it. And I think it's a total win. But, yeah, it'd be really interesting to see the play. It's called Le Pere, I think. That's the name of the play. And I guess he wrote it and directed it. So, yeah.
Cool.
And he is French. So, really cool. You know, they don't speak English in France. People who've seen the movie will get that.
How many times does he say that? It's like 7, maybe?
Yeah, a lot. It's just, I guess, something he remembers pretty clearly.
And it's little things like that
Yeah.
that really kind of get you, right?
Yeah, right.
Because we've all been around older people in your life that like tell the same stories
Yes. Yeah.
with the same lines.
Mm-hmm.
That little stuff gets you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's, I don't know. Let me ask you this. Would you think that the director of this film, or at least one of the writers, he wrote it, I think he co-wrote the screenplay for this with, let's see, Christopher Hampton. Oh, so Christopher Hampton wrote the screenplay based off of Florian Zeller's play. To me, like, I haven't had firsthand experience with someone that had Alzheimer's or dementia.
Me neither.
My
It's
grandmother,
so personal.
Yeah, my grandmother, she had a bit of it, but I never got the sense when I would talk to her that she completely forgot who I was. Not to this extent, but the way that it plays across on screen it seems so ultra realistic that I would not be surprised if he's been directly affected by this somehow.
Well, yeah, of course. That's what I was getting at. It's so personal.
Yeah.
And being in a situation like that where dealing with the emotional side is got to be really tough. But there's also an observational side that I get a lot out of this story, right? Like whoever kind of crafted this up had some really firsthand experience and really kind of presented a way to explain it to a lot of people. Not to explain it, but like demonstrate it.
Yeah.
Demonstrate what it might be like.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that could only have come from somebody who observed it over a period of maybe a decade, right?
Yeah, and here's the other thing too, is while we get it from, I think, Anthony's perspective throughout the film, I mean, I think the central part of the film is to show you how difficult it is for the person experiencing the memory loss. But they also show you how difficult it is for the people around that person too.
Yeah.
And how difficult that all is too. So I thought that kind of all angles that are presented are done so in a way where you can really empathize with everyone involved. And I thought that was really effective.
I want to ask you about one scene before we leave story.
Okay.
Did you expect it to go dark at some point because of that one scene? I won't say what it is, but there's one scene.
Yes. Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
And that scene is totally exhibiting like the thoughts going through Anne's head.
Yes, let me ask you
Right?
about that. So do you think we get a perspective shift, and that's strictly Anne's perspective?
You get a little bit of it throughout the movie, I think.
Okay.
And that one scene is like, obviously that didn't happen,
Right.
but it went through her head,
Yeah.
which is pretty dark,
It was super fucking dark.
you know? And it's kind of a cool way to highlight the thoughts that people taking care of somebody like this might have
Right.
without painting it in like a she's evil kind of light,
Yeah.
you know?
Because you do get a clear picture of how taxing it is for her.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a super dark moment.
Pretty heavy.
Yeah.
You know, it's like a pretty heavy magnifying glass into the human psyche.
Yeah. Oh, man. That's what. Could you imagine like someone like Christopher Nolan getting a hold of a movie like this? A story
Christopher
like
Nolan?
This? Yeah. It takes place in space though. And it
Yeah, where
involves
the
time
explosions
travel.
coming in
Yeah.
on this movie, you know?
Yeah. All right, let's move on to character because I think this is another interesting little. We kind of touched a bit on it, but where do we want to start here with characters?
I say we run through everybody and then we dig in on Anthony.
Okay, all right. I loved Olivia Coleman in this film. I think the way she plays his daughter is so real. Like you can see the warmth she has for her father and how much she cares about her father. And she does a great job of showing the pain that she's feeling because of what's happening to her father, but also how much it weighs on her.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a complex, I guess, headspace to get into. And I thought she did a really good job of showing that.
Obviously, there's the really heavy, intimate moments between her and her father that are emotional.
Yeah.
And you know, hit the cry button
Right.
on those eyes. She's obviously got that skill.
Yeah.
But the scenes that I enjoyed were like the awkward social interactions with like Laura
Yeah.
and the doctors and stuff,
Yeah.
where you can tell that she automatically knows he's off on a tangent,
Mm-hmm.
you know, off on a crazy kind of tangent
Yeah.
and not in the present moment anymore.
Right.
And she's trying to like steer the conversation
Yeah.
the right way and like trying to keep it together.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like that acknowledgement that she knows, oh shit, here he's off into this
Yeah.
direction of his recycled memories kind
Right.
of thing. I really thought she displayed those scenes really cool. Like you
I
can
think-
totally empathize with like that social awkward
Yeah.
situation, right?
Right. The scene that sticks out to me is the tap dancing scene where he talks about being a dancer at some point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it just kind of derails from there, and then she just kind of breaks down, and she's like apologizing, like I'm sorry, to Laura.
Yeah, and it really kind of paints this cool world of like how much do you constantly berate a person and say like, no, wait, that's not what you're talking about. You're thinking of this, blah, 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 and try and correct them and get them on path, or and how much do you let them just flow
Right.
and
Right.
go with it to try and keep the situation from going nuts, you know?
Right. And it's like, how do you
And him
berate
losing
someone for doing something that's not of their choosing,
Yeah.
too? That's another kind of complex issue here, too.
Very complex.
Yeah, totally. Some of my favorite moments were with Olivia Williams' character and Anthony Hopkins. And so
Yeah.
even like before the last scene at the end where we know exactly who she is, at the point where you still believe that she's the younger version of Anne in the film, the little moments where she's sitting down or kneeling up against her dad and asking her like, what's wrong? Like, tell me what's wrong. and they have like a conversation on the bed or something. Just those little tender moments, they hit home, I think, for anyone who can imagine themselves in that position with a parent.
Yeah.
When you're trying to you feel for your mom or dad, and you really want to know like how they're doing and what's bothering them, and you want to help them. And I think that's why anyone who watches this film can identify with, just because of the love you have for your parents. It's really powerful.
Yeah, and I also think her character, Olivia Williams, paints a really good picture of nurses,
Yeah.
right? Because if by the end of the movie you're convinced that that's where he's been the whole time, like we are,
Right.
you're like, wow, well, you can feel really good about where he's at if she's taking care of him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because even though she's not his daughter, she kind of,
Treats him like a father.
treats him the right way, you
Mhm.
know? And has training, obviously, on how to deal with people like that.
Right. Because there's
You
a
know,
point
where
there.
a true daughter of somebody
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have that training, right?
Right.
And Olivia Coleman's character kind of shows that, you know?
Yeah, the other thing I liked about her too is at the end, Anthony's throwing some pretty nasty things at her.
Yeah.
And she knows that, she just has to take it because it's not him. It's just part of the deal. And I think her casting in that role I thought it was fantastic. I really got that sort of tenderness and I guess nursely vibe from her. It's just something about the way she presents herself on screen. You buy that.
Yeah, I agree. And it makes you feel better about the home situation.
And that's where I was getting at. So while
Okay.
most of the film is a bummer,
Yeah.
that's like the one hopeful note where you're like, there are people out there that do this because they want to help people in that situation.
Yeah.
And I think this reminds you of that. So yeah, but that last scene, that's pretty tough to get through.
Yeah, it's fucking heavy, man. What did
Yeah.
you think of the two dudes, the man and
The man.
Paul?
So Mark Gaddis, I'm familiar with some of his work. He's like a pretty prolific English actor, and I see him in TV all the time. And he plays Mycroft Holmes in Sherlock, this TV show with Benedict Cumberbatch, and he's so good. And the way he carries himself, he almost has this sort of, what's the word? This like distinguished persona every time he's on screen. Like he's this sort of elegant thing going on, the way he talks and stuff like that. And so I felt like out of the two men that we see through Anthony's eyes, he was like less of the douchebag.
Yeah, but did you notice when he was taking place of Paul in memory,
Yeah.
he took on like Paul's physical kind of mannerisms,
Yeah.
like the lounging
Yep.
in the chair
Yeah.
and like the slightly more aggressive stance.
Right.
But when he's Bill, when he's the nurse, he's like
Mhm.
very kind of in a different posture,
Yep. Yeah.
like a very caring posture.
Yeah.
Did you notice that?
I did, yeah. The details kind of nuts, like how they were able to track all of that. Yeah, so well done. And I thought he did a great job.
Me too.
Of like anytime he was on screen with Anthony Hopkins.
He plays two characters in this movie.
Mm-hmm. That's the thing too, right? So even with like Imogen Poots playing Laura, I never felt at any point that Anthony Hopkins was overshadowing anyone that was on screen with him. There was
No, that's a good point.
the acting was so good across the board that they could act up to his level, even though they're not going that range, but they always felt there was always like an even sort of display of, I don't even know what you'd call it, but I
Like
always felt like they
command?
were, command of the
Yeah.
screen. I felt like they were always kind of equal.
Yeah, with Rufus Sewell,
Mm-hmm.
he only plays one character, right?
Right.
And he's like the darkest part of the movie.
Yeah. He's pretty dark, but at the same time, you can totally picture someone reacting that way in this circumstance.
Yeah, having a couple of extra ones at dinner
Yeah.
and losing your filter.
Right. And just losing your cool.
Yeah.
And I never got the sense that he was so much trying to be selfish because he thought it was just a screwed up situation. I felt like he was being that way because he saw the wear that it was putting on Anne.
Well, obviously it broke up their marriage.
So yeah, it ended up getting to a point where that's not to say that he's not, I thought he was a total douchebag, but
So I thought he was really good in the role.
Yeah.
And I gotta ask you, do you think the abuse part of the movie is real?
That's a really good question. I don't know.
Because
I
it
hope
happens
not.
with both the
Him
male
and
characters.
right, both of them.
Because
Right.
it's like a very scrambled part of the movie, memory-wise. Do you think that really happened?
You know what? I would almost say it did.
Yeah, like he just has that couple of seconds memory of getting
Yeah.
a little slapped in the face.
And it could have been just one quick moment
Yeah.
that stuck with him forever. Jesus, that's a super downer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now that you mentioned that, I could totally see that being an actual real memory. I mean, who knows?
Trippy-ass movie.
That could have broken the marriage right there, if that was him.
Could be. Oh, the plot thickens, man.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I'd totally forgotten about that part. Crazy. Let's see. Well, we have to circle back to Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah. So let's
So-
play a little game here.
All right.
Let's open up his list. Oh my god. Let's be general, right? If you had to put this on somewhere of his performances, where would you put it?
God. Like rank it?
Yeah, not like, oh, it's better like that. You don't have to get like
Okay,
it's towards
okay.
is it towards the top of the list? Is it top 10ish?
I would say it's definitely top 5
Okay.
for me anyway. I mean, some people only see him as Hannibal Lecter.
Yeah.
It's nuts. Like my sister, she's like, every film I watch him in, I just can't because I see him as Hannibal Lecter. And it's really creepy. But there's a bunch of films I've liked him in. That's the
His
thing.
IMDb goes back to 1960, by the way.
Yeah. So yeah, I think I'd said the last 30 years. I mean, he's been in some massive films the past just 30 years. But like, what role comes to mind for you when you think of Anthony Hopkins? Like, if you had to pick one Anthony Hopkins film where you're like, that's what I remember him from.
You know what it is.
Yeah. Okay. Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
Okay. That's fair.
But I don't think I've ever seen him lose his shit and put on that kind of like hysterical performance in anything before.
Yeah.
Have you?
Um.
Because that's what I'm getting at. Obviously, the little quirks of the crazy, and you really get drawn in. Like, I love the scene in the kitchen in the beginning
Yeah.
where he's like trying to figure out what he's doing. And then he's like, oh, yeah, put some groceries away.
Yeah.
And then he's like, what am I doing? And then fucking puts the bag in his pocket and then like, here's the door closed. You know what I mean? Like the little glimpses in to like just the scatterbrainness.
Right. And I need to say this too before I forget, but when I say that he goes the full range in this film, he goes the full range. Like, you get to see him doing the quiet, solitary thing where he's kind of staring off and you trying to get into his head based on what his eyes are doing and his facial expressions. You get that. You get, like, the charming, entertaining side of him where he's, like, totally flamboyant and trying to make people laugh. You get him really upset and he's angry. And then you totally see him break down at points, too. And I'm trying to think of a film where he completely breaks down like that, and it's not coming into my head right now. Yeah, I think in terms of range, this has to be one of the most complete roles he's had. Because you see bits and pieces of it in all kinds of different movies. And then you also get the like kind of more reserved part of his performance, like I would say like in Meet Joe Black, where he's just kind of very
You even
grounded.
get a little bit of like the evil.
Yeah.
You know, just like a dickhead father
Right.
stuff.
Yeah.
But man, will he make you cry?
Yeah.
Holy shit. They have an award for that.
Oh man. Yeah, I was definitely getting emotional with his performance there.
It's really hard not to.
Yeah, it is. I've seen the angry Anthony Hopkins quite a bit in films.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's something I've seen him reach, but nothing where he breaks down so, like, such a vulnerable performance. I can't really think of anything off the top of my head.
Yeah, it's definitely near the top. I don't want to dive too deep into it's better than this or that, but it's near the top of his list.
I will say that. And I will say that the Oscar nomination, the Best Actor nomination, is totally deserved.
I have a feeling he's going to win.
I do too. And the fact that he's doing it this late in his career.
Yeah.
Damn.
Really good.
Yeah, how old is this man? He's born in 1937, so that would make him 84? Jeez.
Not a math guy.
Yeah. Quick calculator. So yeah, I think for me, what keeps you hooked into this film is his performance for sure.
You go crazy with him.
Yeah, it's hard to look away whenever he's on screen, man.
And you know what I appreciated about it? It was not super long. Because it's such a bummer.
Yes.
That it could have fucking been really taxing if it was like 2+ hours.
I think an hour and a half was perfect for this.
Yeah.
I wish more films would kind of do that.
Yeah.
Like, I can't sit through a 2.5 hour long bummer fest. It's really hard.
Yeah.
But I felt like even with an hour and a half, they were able to tell this really complete story of this guy. Yeah, it was just very efficient. And let me ask you this, too, before we move on. By the end, did you feel like it wrapped it up pretty nicely, where you had a pretty good idea of what happened?
Yeah.
Yeah, same.
Unless my interpretation's way wrong.
Yeah, same, right?
But I don't see how far off it could be.
Yeah, me either. So I felt like we got a pretty good understanding by the end of what they were trying to do. Man, kudos. Kudos to everyone. All right, well, let's talk a bit about the filmmaking side of this thing. So cinematography, FX, we could talk about editing, but you'd mentioned that you liked that was some of your favorite stuff in this movie. What stuck out to you the most?
Just the trippiness.
Mm-hmm.
The subtle changes, how the movie's so similar throughout in the filming style with all the indoor.
Yeah.
But the subtle changes in background
Right.
that almost seem to go back and forth throughout the movie, I thought was a real... Because if you were paying attention, you totally get drawn in and you are kind of going crazy too.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're constantly like, all right, where are we? What room are we in?
Yeah.
And then by like halfway through, you're like, all right, which memory is this now? And you're trying to play that game and piece it all together. And then it's really just a roundabout circular thing by the end. It's just like, it's a really genius way of using the set to make you go crazy kind of with him.
Yeah. Yeah. And we have to give kudos to the editor of this film, Yorgos Lamprinos. He doesn't have a huge filmography, but God, the way this film was edited together. And like I said, to emphasize how well the film was edited together, it takes place in like, what, at the most 3 locations, but 2 different locations and set locations anyway. And they're essentially flats. So you're just going from like room to room. There's not a whole lot there. And somehow they're able to keep your attention there and suck you in the whole time. And I thought that's just solid filmmaking. It's like the editing, the performances, the direction, it keeps you all engaged to where you don't need anything else to hold your attention.
4 places. The
4?
doctor's office too.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Which is similar.
Right.
You know? Which
Yeah.
confuses things even more.
Yeah.
A lot of hallway porn in this movie.
Yeah, right?
Right?
For
like,
sure.
You know, that kind of, it's like a hack in movie making, right? You get this like composition down a hallway that just looks awesome. So many movies do it.
A lot of horror movies do it.
Yeah.
And it adds a little bit of suspense, too, in this movie. But yeah,
suspense
totally.
and confused suspense.
Right. Yeah, and once you get to the end and you figure out what's going on, you're totally visualizing him walking down the hallway of the home that he's in and not the flat anymore.
Yeah.
And that's probably what that was. And I think at some point, right, it changes, right, when he's in the hallway.
Changes 4 times.
Yeah.
There's the hallway at his house.
Right.
There's the hallway at Anne's house.
Yeah.
There's the hallway at the doctor's office. And then there's the hallway at the home.
And there's the hallway of the hospital his younger daughter's at.
Oh, yeah. Bam.
Yeah.
Bonus hallway.
She has an accident. Nuts.
But like the fact that once we think about it, we can start rattling off more.
Yeah.
Is like, that's kind of a really good demonstration of how trippy the movie is.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Oh, man. Special effects? I don't remember any special effects in this movie.
I don't think
Not
so.
needed. Not needed. Let's see. Anything else? I think we can kind of roll into the score because I think it's an interesting one.
It plays into the crazy.
Plays into the crazy, but I think it's interesting because it's almost not there.
There's it went from being multiple times. It went from being background diegetic music into being score, you know?
So here's the thing too, and I think this adds to the trip factor, is the film starts off, right? And you get this operatic music.
Yeah.
And you're just like, that's an interesting selection for score here, for a soundtrack. And then you slowly make your way into the flat, and you find out that he's listening on headphones, and it becomes diegetic.
Yeah.
And I think there again, it's in music form, it's breaking you out of this mindset of, I know what's going on, and it's showing you that you don't know what's going on.
Totally. And it does it multiple times with the headphones and with the radio in the kitchen.
Right.
So it's very trippy, and I totally dug it in this movie.
Yeah, me
because
too.
it really played into making you go crazy too. And opera music will make you go crazy. But
Yes.
it's not all opera music too. There is the emotional kind of background stuff at points, but it's pretty subtle.
It's really subtle and really light, and I would say most of the film isn't scored, if I remember
Yeah.
correctly.
There's definitely a lot of silence.
Yeah, a lot of silence. And I
Or
think
like
that's on
some-
purpose too.
Some really slow cello.
Yeah. But I thought overall the score was super effective in this movie
Yeah.
with what they were doing. I think it complemented the story, not so like only the emotional side of things, but also it complemented what they were trying to do with showing you that it's not exactly what you think. What you see is not what actually is going on.
Yeah.
That's what was cool. What you're hearing isn't what you're actually hearing. So that was another trip factor. Well, I think we've reached a good point. We can start wrapping up here.
All right.
You want to start with love hates? We'll start with you.
Sure. I loved how fucking trippy it was. And I love how every aspect of the movie plays into making you kind of go crazy with him.
Yeah.
I thought that was really effective and really kind of cool. And I was trying to think of something to compare it to, like what it's not as terrifying, like in a horror sense. It's very real world.
Yeah.
But like what Shutter Island was kind of like a going crazy mindfuck movie.
For me, A Beautiful Mind comes to mind
Okay.
with Russell Crowe. That one I feel like was a bit larger. It was quite a bit larger. This one I think is very grounded.
That's the one where he's like the math star guy, right?
Yes.
I don't remember that much.
Yeah. So that's what that was. But I think of films like that. I think for this one being so real world and so grounded, it's so strong. And I think anyone can connect with a story like this because this could happen to anybody, really.
So what I'm getting at, I loved how trippy it was in the fact that it wasn't just a mindfuck type movie like an Inception or what we just did recently.
Yeah.
What was that movie, Tenet?
Right.
It's a different kind of mindfuck, and I really enjoyed that. That's what I love. And
Okay, cool.
I mean, I don't really hate it, but yeah, it's a fucking bummer. It triggers all kinds of like, oh fuck, how am I gonna deal with this situation if I'm ever put in it? It makes you think about all of that kind
Yeah.
of death stuff, which isn't fun. So,
Right.
Yeah, that's what I disliked about the movie. I won't say I hated it though. What about you?
Gotcha. I'm going to start with the hate first, and I'm going to kind of piggyback off of what you said about it's a downer. But at the same time, I think that having this film out there, while it could trigger memories for people where this hits home, it's also kind of comforting to know that there's probably a bunch of people out there that are dealing with this same issue. And it's almost like this shared experience kind of deal where it helps to know that you're not alone, where this can happen to anybody. And it's something that is difficult to deal with everyone. And like I said, the way it ends for me is a nice little sliver of like humanity where with all of this like hardship and pain, there are people out there that are doing the best they can to help these people at the end of the road. And
Yeah.
I liked how it kind of ended there.
So before you go on to your loves, let me ask you, do you think this movie is meant to help people in this situation make any type of decision? Do you think its
No.
purpose is for that, or is it just presenting the scenarios?
No, I don't think that's its purpose at all. I think the purpose of this film is to get people to understand what this is like. And I think that's what the strength is of the film. It allows anyone, I think, to empathize with what's going on here. And to kind of give you this complex picture of, I think it allows you to ask questions more than give you answers. And I like that in films. I don't like it a lot of times when films just kind of spoon feed you like, this is what you should do. This is the message of this movie.
Yeah.
Go do it. This is not that kind of movie.
No.
but I think it does paint a nice picture of, not a nice picture, but an effective picture of someone in the situation and the people around them, and it gets you to think about, how hard something like this is for people who experience it. And I thought that I really appreciated that. So that's one of my loves. And then
I thought that was a dislike.
it's weird, right? So it's a downer, but there's a little hope in there too. And then on top of all that, just the mastery of filmmaking right here. This is just a solidly well-made film. Sorry. The direction's fantastic. The editing is brilliant. And, I'd be interested to see what the play is like for the film, or the original play that the film's based on. I think that would be really interesting. But yeah, just to be able to tell a coherent story with so much going on, that's a really tough feat. And I think that they pulled it off here. So yeah, hats off to them. I thought that it was just a well-made film. I love it.
Yeah.
Totally.
All right. Well, let's see where you come down on this with some buckets.
All right. So
that 5 pressure, dude. There's that 5 pressure.
yeah, it's so I'm going to give it a full point on story. I think it's interesting. It's different, and it's well told. The acting's fantastic, and it's led by Anthony Hopkins' performance, and everyone around him is at just a high level as he is, so they get a full point there. The cinematography, look, the effects, the editing, that gets a full point too. I mean, I think this is, if I were to show a film to demonstrate the importance and how film editing can influence how a story is told, this is like a perfect example. So editing can tell a story, and I think this is a great example of that. So this gets a full point there too. Score, while there wasn't a whole lot there, I have to give it a point just because of how it complements the story that they're telling. So it gets a point there, and I liked it.
There it is, the feels.
I liked it a lot. And it did make me feel something, even though it was like getting me watery-eyed. That's it just hit me really hard, and I appreciated that it did. So I got to give it a 5.
All right.
So it gets a 5 from me. 5 buckets of popcorn.
All right.
What about you?
Acting point, of course. The acting is so good all the way around, and there's only so many people in the movie that it's just really good.
Yeah.
The story, for sure. I love the trippiness. The score, of course. The cinematography, of course. Getting bong load for all of those. I'm going to give it 0.75 on the feels. All right? Because it is a bummer.
I know why, yeah.
And it makes you think about all kinds of shit that you probably... I don't want to be thinking about. I want to just be more in the present.
Gotcha.
Chilling, So, yeah, 4.75.
4.75.
Bong loads for me.
I'm going to have to write that down for the article because I'll forget. 4.75 from El Toddo.
Yeah, it's like you almost filled the bong all the way up.
Yeah.
But you left like a couple inches before you cleared it. So 0.75 bong load,
Sweet. All right. And then more importantly, would you recommend this film?
If you have gone through this as somebody who had a parent or relative, slip into this and it was really rough for you, I would probably say pass.
Gotcha. Okay.
I don't know if it's going to make somebody feel better about if they had to go through like something like this.
Yeah.
For somebody that might foresee this happening, it might be good.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? To like get an idea, maybe.
Yeah.
Understanding.
Right.
And for somebody that just wants to have a good time, no. It's a bummer. But from like a movie making standpoint and how complex and technical it is, it's really awesome from like a film study perspective.
Sure. I'd have to agree with everything you just said. This could hit really close to home for a lot of people.
Yeah, I could see people just bawling their eyes out through the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it's
Make
a difficult
you feel,
watch at times. Yeah, make you feel.
You don't like to feel, if you're like me.
Yeah. Don't make me feel.
Comfortably numb, you know? That's the way I roll.
Comfortably numb. Oh, man. So, yeah, that's all I got, man.
Shout out,
any
Pink
last
Floyd.
words? Yeah. Shout out. Well, that's all we got. That was episode
Hopefully we can
66.
pick it up, man. I'm voting no. on Oscars.
On Oscars? Okay, so
Yeah.
we'll take a little break.
No mas.
No more? Okay. All right.
No more heavy. Let's get back to fun.
All right. Well, we'll see what we can do on that. We should have something coming around that we can do.
Oh,
But anyways.
and you mentioned it last week that the other movie was called Heavy Metal. It's called Sound of Metal.
Did I call it heavy metal?
Yeah, and that's why I asked if it was that 80s cartoon.
Oh, Sound of Metal. Yeah, sorry.
But
Totally Sound of Metal.
I don't want to do that either because it's not just a drummer story. It's a drummer that goes deaf.
Yes. Yeah.
So, like, maybe we'll push that down the road.
Heavy metal. Well, it's a
Another
heavy
bummer. It
another
sounds like.
heavy Sound of Metal movie.
There you go.
Yeah. And then Trial of the Chicago 7, that's the other one. That's another just
This is another heavy. I'm out. No mas.
yeah. All right.
I want to have some fun.
So we'll get
Mortal
something.
Kombat, dude. I think Mortal Kombat comes out this week.
Does it really? All right. But yeah, we're
Next
definitely
weekend.
doing that whenever it comes out. So
Fuck yeah.
hell yeah. Get some Sub-Zero action. Well, thanks for sticking around, guys. That was episode 66, Buff and the Blazer. We talked about The Father. It's got some awards going for it. And yeah, I think we both like it pretty.
It's good. It's really fucking good.
Yeah, it's really good. So if that's something you're into, give it a watch. It's worth its own an hour and a half. So, but yeah, episode 66. We'll get this out to you on our usual schedule, and we hope you have a wonderful week.
Peace.